Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. ولقد يسرنا القرآن للذكر فهل مدكر. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ثم ما بعد. Okay, just because I don't know what happened to my Zoom, that these recordings are not going to be shared with you in Skype. So I thought that I have to make another video for the other students too, who are actually catching up with the recordings. So that's why I've just thought that I have to make another video, so to make this concept easy, because it's necessary for the serve, which is coming ahead. Okay, so let's start from passive, but before going on into passive, the first thing that I have to make sure that you have to differentiate between sarf and nahu, right? Nahu is a different thing and sarf is a different thing when it comes to Arabic study, right? In Arabic language, there are two main grammar sciences called an-nahu and as-sarf. By grammar, I means the technical aspects of Arabic, then there is the art of Arabic. So you actually have two kind of things. Let me give you an example. Like I gave them an example of a painter, right? And a painter needs to understand how the color works with each other. If you mix this color and this color, what color do you get? And this kind of canvas, and what kind of reflection do you get? So a painter has to study materials, paints, colors, brushes, what kind of frame, what kind of stretching, what kind of lighting, all that stuff, because that's the science side of it, right? And the same case would be the architect has to study the physics and the chemistry of materials and the building materials and the foundation issues and different kinds of geologies. He has to study all the science stuff. All right. But at the end of it all, a painter become an artist, and he used all that stuff he learned and he makes something creative, right? And the architect is the scientist at the end of the day. And at the end of like putting all that science together, they can make a very beautiful artsy building. So there's a lot of science behind it, but at the end of the day, it looks like an art, right? So when you become really good at the science, then you are ready for the art. So right now we are in the science of Arabic, and then there's gonna be the art of Arabic, right? So there are like two sciences of Arabic, a nahu and a sarf. Okay, the nahu would be, the definition of a nahu is like, how do words affect other words? Like, what is the effect of one word on another? That's what, when you study like mudaf, mudaf alayh, harf of jar and majroor, that's when you study the inside and the outside door. That's when you study the nasab, rafa, nasab and jar thing, right? So why? Because that word is having an effect on another word, and you can study that effect. That's called nahu, right? And in English, the word for nahu is used syntax, right? Means that's how one word affects the other, right? Syntax means that, right? And sarf is something that you pretend that other words just don't exist. You are just looking at one word and how that one word is spelled, and how the change in spelling of that word changes its meaning. That's all you are doing when you are studying sarf. And in sarf, when you change the spelling of a word, that's called in English morphology. Sarf literally means changing, right? So it means if I can know one formula, I can change it into a bunch of words. And there are 14 to 15 formulas that we are going to memorize in this unit, and we will be deriving a lot of other words from it, right? This is what sarf is. Okay, but before going into the sarf itself, I have to teach you a little bit about one concept, and that's called passives, because it's really needed in memorizing the families, and it's one of the most important component of that family, right? So, and I believe it's not going to be taught in Unit 1. So this is actually Unit 3 thing. It's a sarf thing, right? Okay, so a passives, the definition is sometimes you describe an act and don't know who did it, right? Means passive is something in which a doer is a mystery, means the doer is not known. Like when you say a sentence, like for example, if you say he helped, here the doer is known. Who did the act of helping? He. But if you say it like he was helped, right? Here the doer is not mentioned. It is not known, right? It is kept a mystery. So he was helped. Actually, the person that get helped is not known, like by which person he gets the helping thing or whatever, right? So the helping act is done by someone which is not known, right? Okay, and then there are two kinds of passive: past passive, present passive. The Arabic term for past passive is used فعل ماضي المبني على المجهول. Present passive is فعل مضارع المبني على المجهول. Okay, this whole thing will make sense in a second, right? If we do a lot of examples, right? Or if you go through these examples, right? Let's move on first to the past passive, right? Past passive is actually it's a fi'al thing, right? It's not an ism thing, it's not a harf thing, right? So it's actually a fi'al thing, right? The first word here you're gonna see is nasara, right? The word nasara. And nasara, actually it's a past tense. What giveaway? The a sound at the end give away that it's a past passive. It's a past tense huwa version, right? The doer is he here, okay? Darasa, past tense. Qatala, past tense. Qatala, past tense. Kataba, past tense. And all of them are huwa version. Why? The a sound at the end shows that it's a past tense huwa version, right? Nasara means he helped. Darasa means he taught. Qatala means he killed. Qatala means he fought. Kataba means he wrote. Okay, these are the active past tenses, right? How we are gonna make it passive? Well, to make it passive, you have to invade it with the two sounds, right? You have to invade it with the two sounds, and that two sounds are u-e, means dhamma and kasra. Okay, the second rule for that is that the last original letter means the last original root letter. Here the root letters are nun, sad, and ra. So the last root letter is ra here, right? To make active into passive, or to convert active into passive, you are not going to mess around with the last letter and its haraka, right? That's off limits, right? And the rest before it, you have to change it into a u-e sound. So nasara becomes nusira, right? Darasa becomes durrisa, right? The last letter seen here has a fatha. It's off limits, means you are not gonna mess around with the last letter, right? To change the past active into a past passive, you have to convert it into a u-e sound, right? And the last letter will remain untouched, right? That's the rule. The sukun will remain the same on its place, right? The shadda will remain the same on its place, untouched. The last letter is gonna be on its place, untouched, but the letters before it is gonna be invaded by what two sounds? U-e, dhamma and kasra, right? Darasa becomes durrisa. Qatala becomes qutila. Qatala becomes qutila, right? And then kataba becomes kutiba, right? So two sounds, when you see a word, then these are being invaded by two sounds, u-e, then, and they end with the a sound at the end, that it's actually a past passive, right? Here it means he helped. Then when you make it, or you invade it with the u-e sound, so it becomes he was helped, means the doer is not known here. He taught. Who did the act of teaching? He. Here the doer is mentioned, so it's active. But he was taught, here, he was taught, right? Here means he is being taught, but the person who taught him is not mentioned, means the doer is not known here, so it's past passive. Qatala, he killed. Qutila, he was killed. The doer is not mentioned. If you say he killed, the doer is known, means the person that is being killed is by that person, that he is the killer of that person, right? But if you say he was killed, means he is being murdered, but the person who did this act is not known, right? So he fought, he was fought, right? And he wrote, it was written. Okay, if you say there's a complication, like one student, I think Sister Sumaira said that why is being replaced with it should be he was written. If you say he was written, right, if you change that past tense active into a past passive, so you have to put was, right, to make the doer unknown. So if I say he was written, it's not making sense, right? It's not making sense if you say he was written. The person is not something that you can make him or her right? So that's why the he or she is being changed sometime with the it, if it is making sense, right? So Arabic language is not only about like the grammar or the nahu that you have learned and the rules, whatever you have memorized. It's more about common sense. So you have to keep both things together, right? Whatever is making sense, you're going to go with that thing, right? Okay, then, okay, the long a sound qatala becomes qutila, right? It's why, because the long, the fatha likes the alif, so qatala, and the dhamma likes the waw, so qutila, because with the waw, the dhamma goes well, and with the alif, the fatha goes well. So qatala, the long a sound being invaded by long u sound, qutila, all right? I hope that's making sense. But one more thing, but I'm missing. Let me think. Okay, I think that's cleared, but okay, I have to repeat it again. Qatala, okay, it's a long a sound, right? It's qatala, right? Qatala alif. After qaf we have after qaf we have an alif, so it becomes a long a sound. So when I convert it, I have to take the long a sound and replace it with the long u sound, right? Because here the past passive should have like u e sound. So with the dhamma, the waw goes well, right? So that's why the u came here. So the long a comes when you add an alif, and the long u comes when you add a waw. That's why the u is there. It will make sense once we get into the surf itself, like the irregular surf, right? Or the advanced surf, you can call it. So just for now, the long a sound being replaced with the long u sound, okay? Okay, so the passive is, what is the definition of a passive? The doer is not known, right? That's the definition of a passive. What's the definition of active fi'als? The doer is known. And what's the definition of passive fi'als? In which the doer is not known, in which the doer is a mystery, right? And what two sounds invade a past tense into a past passive? U and E sound, right? And the rules for that would be that the last original root letter will remain untouched, and the second to last letter, which is Sad here, right, it will get a kasra, and the letters before it will get a dhamma, right? So you're going to have multiple U's and one E sound, right? Means the last letter remains untouched, the second to last letter gets a kasra, and everything before it will get a dhamma. So multiple U's and one E, okay? That's for, let's move on to the present passive. And the Arabic term used for that is fi'al mudari' al-mabni ala al-majhul, right? Present passive invade the word, invade the word by two sounds, okay, u and a, right? Like the past tense, when you want to make a past passive out of it, you actually invaded with a u and a, u and e sound. But if you want to invade the present tense into a present passive, it takes like u and a sound, right? And here I have written that the original last letter remains the same. The sukoon still remains the same, and multiple a's and one u. That will make sense in a second when we go through it, okay? Okay, let's do the examples. Okay, here you can see the word yaktubu and yudarrisu. and yuktabu and yudarrasu, right? Yaktubu, it's a present tense. You know why it's a present tense? Because the ya beginning and dhamma ending will make it a present tense, right? The present tense usually have a beginnings of aitunna, hamza, ya, nun, and ta. So here we are going to have a ya, and the dhamma ending, it is actually making it as a huwa, right? So yaktubu, right? It's a present tense. So to invade or to change or convert the present active into a present passive, you have to invade it with the two sounds u and a instead of u and e. That is for the past passive, right? Then you have yudarisu, it's again present tense, right? So the first thing you have to do is first you have to figure out what kind of a fi'al is this. Either it's a past tense or a present tense. If it's a past tense, invaded with the u and e sound. If it is a present tense, invaded with the u and a sound, right? So yaktubu becomes yuktabu, u, a. You get a dhamma on ya and the fatha on the ta. So yuktabu, okay? And yudarisu, the kasra being replaced with the fatha, because we want u and a sound, right? Okay, here, the last letter will remain untouched. Means we are not gonna mess around with the last one, right? And the second to last letter here, so for the present tense, you get one u and multiple as, right? One u and multiple as, what that mean is, then in the past tense, you are like, it is the rule for both, like the last letter should remain untouched. For the past tense, the second to last letter gets a kasra, everything comes before it gets a dhamma. So you have multiple u's and one e. In the present tense, you have one u sound in the beginning, and right, and word comes after it got a sound, right? Yudarasu instead of yudarisu, right? So you have one u sound in the beginning and then multiple a sound afterwards, right? So here it means yaktubu means he writes. Yuktabu, when a sound will make it present passive. It is being written. The doer is not known here. Okay. Yudarisu, he teaches. Yudarasu, he is being taught. Okay. The translation totally changes. Like the doer is not known here. And in Arabic, how do what give away? The u and a sound. Whenever you find these two sounds on the word, these are actually present passive. Okay, for the past passive, you have u and e sound. Okay, let's do some examples so that it will become clear. Okay, istamala. Istamala, first you have to figure out what kind of a tense is this, right? Istamala is a past tense. What give away the a sound at the end or the fatha at the end, give it away that it's a past tense full version, okay? So he used, the translation would be he used, okay? Then we have, so to make it the past tense, past active into a past passive, what two sounds invade? U and e. Okay, so here we have u and e sound, right? The last letter is untouched. The second to last letter gets a kasra, e sound. Everything comes before gets a dhamma, right? So you have multiple u's and then one e on the second to last letter, right? So it becomes usturmila. Okay, so instead of translating it as he used, it was used or he was used. Both are correct, right? Whatever is making sense or whatever you are talking about, whatever the context tells you, okay? Okay, so the last letter remains same, okay? Okay, let's do another example. Ta'allama, right? Ta'allama. Ta'allama is a past tense. First, you have to figure out what kind of a tense is this. Ta'allama. Ta'allama is a past tense. What give away? The fatha or the a sound at the end, right? So it's ta'allama huwa version, okay? Okay, and in order to make the past active into a past passive in which the doer is not known, you have to invade it into two sounds, which is u and e, means multiple u's, one e sound. Okay, so here in the fathas gets replaced with the dhamma. right? The last letter here, is meme. So we are not going to mess around with the meme, right? The second to last letter gets a kasra, which is lam, and everything before it gets a dhamma. So multiple oos and one e. So ta'allama becomes tu'allima. Okay, ta'allama means he learned, right? And tu'allima means he was learned or it was learned, right? So the doer is not known here. Okay. Okay, let's do this one. Then we are moving on to the present tense. Okay. Tadhakkaru, because it seems to be complicated, so that I can clear your concept about it. Okay, what I mean by the original last letter. Okay. Tadhakkara, it's a past tense. Hua tadhakkara, huma tadhakkara, hum tadhakkaru, hiya tadhakkarat, huma tadhakkarata, like this, right? So here it is hum tadhakkaru. Okay, the original last letter is ra here. The original last root letter, right, is ra here. And everything, so we are not going to mess around with the last letter, right? This is from our rules, right, about passives. And everything comes after, like wow and aleph. We are not going to mess around with those two because it comes from the pronoun chart. It's not the original letters, right? So that's why the last letter is untouched, and whatever comes after it is going to be untouched too, because they are off limits, right? They comes from the chart. That doesn't come from like passive or all that things, right? So tadhakkaru becomes, it's a past tense home version. So to invade the past active, you have to invade it into two sounds, u and e, right? So the last letter will remain untouched, right? U, and the second to last letter is kaf, which gets a kasra, and everything before it gets a dhamma. So multiple u's, one e, right? So tudhukkiru, right? It means they remembered. Tudhukkiru means they were remembered, right? So this is from the past passive. I hope you understand, right? You have multiple u's, or you can memorize it this way, that the last letter is untouched, the sukoon will remain on its place, and the second to last letter gets a kasra, everything before it gets a dhamma. So you have multiple u's and one e. Okay, when you get to the present tense example, yatadhakkaruna, right? It is hum yatadhakkaruna. The ya beginning, una ending will tell you that it's a present tense home version. Okay, yatadhakkaruna, it's a present active, right? And if you want to make it into a present passive, you have to invade it into two sounds, u and a, not u and e. That's for past passive. U and a, that is for past present passive. Okay, so the last letter is the ra. We are not going to mess around with this one. It's off limits. We are not going to touch it, and everything after it, like una, they're untouchable too, because they are after the original last letter. Okay, so the second to last letter here is the kaf, right? And then you have da, ta, and ya. So we have a lot of letters. So for the present, like for the past tense, you have like one e and multiple u's before it, right? Here you're gonna have one u sound, u sound, right? Or mu sound, you can say, and everything comes after, like ta, da, kaf gets a sound. So you have one u and a lot of ahs here, right? So everything gets only the first letter gets u, and everything comes after gets so you have multiple ahs and one u, right? So for the past, so yatadhakkaruna becomes yutadhakkaruna. Okay, so the past passive actually have one e sound, and everything comes before it gets u, right? In the present passive, the first letter gets u, and everything comes after it gets a, right? Okay, let's do another example. Yastaghfiru. Yastaghfiru is actually, it's a huwa version. The ya beginning and the dhamma ending, it's a huwa version, and it's a present tense, right? So to invade or to change or to convert the present tense into a present passive, you need two sound, which is u and a. So yastaghfiru becomes yustaghfaru. Why? Because the last letter is ra. It will remain as it is. The sukoon will stays on its place. The only thing that changes is u. The first letter gets u, and everything after it gets a. So yustaghfaru. Okay, yustaghfaru. I hope that is clear. So yastaghfiru means he asks for forgiveness. Yustaghfaru means he is being asked for forgiveness, right? So the doer is not known. Okay, so that's all we have studied today. And to organize our thoughts, I have to memorize the whole lecture. Okay, and here we have passive. Sometimes you describe an act, a fi'al, and don't know who did it, right? It means the doer is not known. These are called passive. Means passive is something in which the doer is a mystery, unknown. Fi'al is mentioned, whereas the doer is not, right? So these are called passive. And then we have two kinds of passives, right? Past passive invade the word by two sounds, u and e, right? And the present tense is invaded by two sounds, that is u and a, right? Then the rest rules are the same. The original last letter remains off limits, right? Untouchable is what the sukoon still remains the same for both, right? And then we have multiple U's and one E, right? For the past tense. And then we are gonna have here, the original letter will remains the same. The sukoon still remains the same, multiple A's and one U. Okay, so this is what the rules are, right? And passive is something in which the doer is not known. Active fi'al is something in which the doer is known, right? And then past passive is invaded by u and e sound. Present passive is invaded by u and a sound. This is what we have learned in today's class. I hope that's clear now.